Good morning. If you would, please stand. At this point, I would ask that everyone on this side of the church move to this side of the church, and everyone on this side of the church move to this side of the church, and everyone on this side of the church move to that side of the church, and everyone on that side of the church move to that side of the church. You have 1 minute. Okay. How's everybody doing? Does anybody need a hug? Raise your hand if you're ready to kill Father Ben. Okay, a few hands. All right, all right. Well, this is different. So, this may come as a surprise, those of you who don't know. Have you noticed that people tend to sit in the same place at Mass? And by the way, I sit in the same place at Mass too, okay? So I'm not throwing stones, all right? There's nothing wrong with routines. We are all routine prone. We all have our routines. And by the way, I have noticed that some of you did not move, okay? Just saying, we have Saturday school this Saturday, okay? So there's nothing wrong with routines. Routines are actually a good thing, right? I work out at the same time, I drink my coffee at the same time, I go to work at the same time, I go to Mass, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. Here's the problem though, it can actually be our own worst enemy if we're not careful. Why? Because some people are allergic to change. They get so locked in their routines that when their routines change, they're just totally flustered, right? You see that sometimes when they go on vacation, they can't handle it, right? That happens at work, right? People can put their whole identity in what they do, my position, caring for these little ones, whatever. Those are not bad things if we understand that that's not our whole identity. That is part of our life. But if our whole identity is in this work or place, what happens when that's gone? We're lost completely. No, we are more than that. So it brings us to this question, right? So what's the difference between change and transition, life transition? Well, in brief, in my opinion, look, we go through many changes. Changes are often, we sit in a different spot at Mass. We go through 1,000 changes a week, often. Life transitions, however, are more rare. Once every 10 years or so. Part of this life skill that we need to have and we need to teach to our children and grandchildren is how to pivot when change drops in our lap. And I'm going to be honest with you, as you know, some people are better at that than others. When we don't learn how to pivot with change, a person's going to have a hard time in this thing we call life. For instance, some changes we see coming. I'm about to retire. My children are about to leave the house. We see this coming, it comes. Still hurts, but we move on. Some change drops in our lap. We're like, boom. Right? How am I going to handle this? Some changes are beautiful. They're awesome. They're wonderful. We get a job promotion. We have a new baby. Some changes, they come out of the blue. A sudden death of a loved one. A divorce. Smack. And the mind is trying to catch up to reality. Those of you that have lost someone very close to you suddenly. It's surreal, isn't it? The mind is trying to catch up to reality. What do you mean I'm at a funeral? I just had lunch with them last week. How can this even be possible? How do you roll with change? You know, right before he died, the poet Robert Frost, he said, in 1963, he said, we have to tear down the old in our lives to make way for the new if we're ever going to change. You have to tear down the old sometimes. It doesn't mean we forget it. It doesn't mean that's not part of our past. What it means is you are more than that. That's what that means. It's kind of like this. Pretty much, probably most of us here know what it's like, right, to remodel our home, which usually costs more and takes longer than we think it's going to take, right? But maybe you know this feeling of taking a sledgehammer to the sheetrock in your house. You ever seen that movie, Fried Green Tomatoes? It's a great scene there where Kathy Bates takes a sledgehammer to this wall. I love that. Sometimes we have to do that to our past. Just take it down, man. But people, when they don't know how to change, they get stuck in emotional and spiritual quicksand. They can't get out of it. It just, because that's my whole identity. Well, no, it's not. That's part of your past. That's not your identity. So we have to be able to pivot with change. You know, Jesus himself, he talks so much about change. In the Synoptic Gospels, if you've ever heard that word, the Synoptic Gospels, that's Matthew, Mark, and Luke, not Ringo. Okay, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And so in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, he says this. It's kind of a weird saying. He says, you don't pour new wine into old wineskins, because when you pour new wine into old wineskins, they burst. He said, you pour new wine into new wineskins. What does that mean, Jesus? What are you talking about? That's what he means. He says we have to be open to change, and we have to change our attitude about change. And he's specifically speaking to the leaders at the time who did not want to change. They were like, this is who we are. They're stubborn. Hey, if they don't like it, they can go, you know. Well, the problem with people like that is they end up very, very alone. Very alone, because nobody wants to be around somebody like that. They may be stubborn, by God, but my suggestion to them is get comfy, brother. You're going to be there by yourself for a while. You can't be happy that way. You can't be happy that way. Speaking of change, I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but there's a massive change going on with young people in this country right now. Huge. You should look at the data. They have been spoon-fed for several generations now, just an endless supply of, you know what, from much in the secular press and from, I'm sorry to say, some of their college professors, just spoon-fed this stuff. And what we're seeing now is a pivot away from this towards this little thing that we call truth. You will find the truth, and the truth will set you free. And they found it. And as you can imagine, this throws many who's been feeding them this into a total tailspin. They don't know how to handle it. As one young man told me recently, he said, Father, I had to make a choice, and the choice was between truth or tribe. And I chose truth. Even if the tribe goes this way, we're seeing an about face of a whole generation. And that is very, very frightening to a lot of people. We have to change if we're going to grow. We have to, which requires humility, the acknowledgement that I need to change, and the courage to follow through with it. I mean, in case you didn't know this, brothers and sisters, everyone in this church this morning, we're going to go through two major transitions in our life. We go from dependency to independency, and independency back to dependency. What does that mean? It means we go from here to being an adult, and later from being an adult, as an older adult, back to here. Only now we have a bigger body. scary. How well do you and I pivot with change? And people will say if something drops in their lap overnight, some horrible, tragic thing, and most of us have been there, they not only want to know what is happening to them, they want to know why. Why is this happening to me, Father? What did I do to deserve this? Why is this happening? And you know what I say? I'm like, I can't answer that for you. I can walk with you and hug, but I can't answer that. That is between you and God. But people often expect the priest to have all the answers, and I don't know. You have to figure that out on your own, man. It's like a fingerprint. It's tailor-fit to you. But I can guarantee you this, God will use that to bring you to the next stratosphere in your spiritual and emotional life, if you use it, or you can become bitter and stuck in your ways. You've got to choose. So, I'll close with this. Many of you may know that in November of 1942, the USS Juno in the Pacific, the height of World War II, was torpedoed by a Japanese sub. Sadly, that day, almost 700 servicemen died. Among those were 5 brothers, the Sullivan brothers. This gospel today, we hear about 5 brothers. It was the same thing. 5 Sullivan brothers, they were from Waterloo, Iowa, Irish Catholics. So her mom, Alita, and their dad, Tom, they were first-generation Irish Catholics. And you can imagine how horrible this was for their mother, Alita. What a lot of people don't know about the Sullivan brothers is that same year, they had a sister who also died. This woman lost 6 adult children the same year. Can you imagine? About a year and a half later, Alita Sullivan christened the USS Sullivans. And FDR said that year, he said that she was the most inspirational person he ever met during World War II, which is saying something considering he was friends with Winston Churchill. And they asked her, as you can imagine, asked her again and again and again, how do you even get out of bed? How do you function? And she was very honest. She said, it's horrible. It's horrible. I have days that I just melt like butter on a hot day. But she followed that up and she said, yes, I was a mother, and I am a mother, but that's not all I am. I'm much more than that. It's part of me, like a finger in a hand, but I'm much more than that. And she tore down the old and created the new. For each one of us, brothers and sisters, if we don't learn how to change in life transitions, you and I will get stuck in emotional and spiritual quicksand. You can't grow that way, and you can't be happy that way.